I'm going to give you three books, just three, and there's tons of them. But today, I'm going to give you three that stood out for me. As you know, as a procrastinator in rehabilitation, um, I needed to have reflection time. And for me, reflection time has always been books since I was, before I could, you know, drive or anything else. It was like books was my thing. That was the one thing that relaxed me. I would escape into a book and leave me there for days. Just leave me in the book. I didn't want to come out. And I hated when a book ended. It was just devastating because I enjoy reading so much. But anyway, so as I started my journey of being intentional with my time, with my life, and really seeing what full potential I have and how can I really take self-development to the next level, right? I needed to have some things in the arsenal, right? I have tons of books. We're going to go over that in different chapters, like just different books that I've been reading. I tend to read maybe 1 to 3 books in a month if I can. If I can't read the actual physical book, I'll just get an audible. That's my cheat code is if you don't have time to read, just get the audiobook and then read it in the car as you're doing your walk or when you're working. Whenever you can, just read an audiobook. I still also buy the books and then get the audio. So whenever I can't read the book physically, I'll just still listen to it. So I still feel like I'm getting my dose that I need to get me through. So, like I said, during my journey and being intentional about my time and really pushing myself to the limit, I wanted to make sure what was my relationship spiritually, what's my relationship financially, what's my relationship with money, right? Because yes, money was a factor in some of my decisions. It was not the center of my decision. The center of my decision was really happiness. But of course, monetary gains would be good, right? So I needed to make sure that my heart was good, my spirit's good, and that I do want the money ultimately, but where are my intentions? Are they good? Where is it coming from? So the first book I read, of course, and I don't even want to say read. Don't get me to lying, okay? I'm not going to say read because I just got the new version because I had the Old Testament. And I'm talking about the Bible. Here we go. I had the Old Testament and it sat by my nightstand. And I just didn't read it because I didn't understand it. And every time I would try to get into it, I would be like, wow, this is really confusing. I can't follow the story. I just couldn't understand it. And it was frustrating. So, of course, I went to ChatGPT and says, can you summarize the chapter for me? But I wanted to see how the story is played out, right? Like, what is it really? Like, really understand it on a personal level. So this is the first book I'm tackling. I have made a commitment this year and I'm sticking to it. And I'm doing Bible study and I'm going to learn everything that I can about the scriptures in the Bible and how do they apply to my everyday life so that when certain things come up like fear, I can implement my strategies in the real world, but then I can also implement my strategies on a spiritual level. So the first book I got is, of course, the Bible, and it's probably the only book you need. But I also wanted to have other things, right? So if I don't know that I told you initially, but I kind of used to think always about external factors, right? Instead of going internally, like what people thought about me. So I tend to dumb down my ideas, or I don't say dumb them down, but just make light of everything, or it's not a big deal, it's not a big accomplishment, and kind of just protect the feelings or discomfort of other people. So I never really wanted to boast because I felt like, all right, if you boast, that kind of sounds like you're a jackass, right? And nobody wants to be the jackass. So I don't ever like boasting about anything, right? It feels weird. Um, but then I noticed that I was caring a little too much about what other people thought. And I'm just like, this is kind of, it's a bit much, like everything is good, but nothing is good in excess. And you're caring a little too much about what people think. So, of course, a book came to me and I got it years ago, right? And I wanted to read it. I think I started like chapter 1, 2, or 3 or whatever. And I had so much going on in my personal life that I didn't get to it. But, God makes no mistakes. And when the time was right, I pulled out the book and I read it again. And this time I read it from cover to cover. And I also pick up the audiobook. So when I was in chapters or I didn't have the book with me, I would just listen to it on my phone in the car. And that book was, hold on a second. Now, I hate to do this after I just spoke of the Bible to use another book with the F-bomb on the cover. And I didn't do this on purpose. It's literally the title of the book. I didn't make it. So, and here it is. I know you guys have heard of this because it's a pretty classic New York Times bestseller. And it's old. It's some years. It's been some years since the original came out. But it was so refreshing. So if you're just like me and you overthink everything and you always caring what everybody thinks and you're like, I just care so much, I care so much. This book really helps you to decide what F's you're going to give. I mean that literally. And what are you going to spend your time worrying about, or what things are you going to care about, right? So it lightened me up a little bit because sometimes you take things too serious. Well, I took things too serious. It's like, it's not that deep, sis. Like, nobody's thinking about you like you think they're thinking about you, right? So humbling myself and being like, all right, I can't change certain situations or certain people or certain outcomes, and that's okay. Like, you don't have to respond negatively. Like, the world's already negative. Keep that to yourself. Like, how do you control yourself? That's really all you got, is what is the way and how you're going to respond to this. And I try to respond now to things with some dignity, right? Like, I don't want to be the one getting out of pocket and you just getting rowdy, and then I regret it in the long term. So this book helped me just really be intentional about the F's I'm gonna give. Seriously. And it was funny and it was lightweight and it gave me time to just not take myself and the things so serious, because it's not that deep, boo. So if you're looking for some F's not to give, then this is the book. I mean, it really is just good, and it's worth every page, trust me. Okay. And then the last book I read, because I was being so intentional with my life lately and really just not limiting myself to my limited expectations of what I could do and the things that I could accomplish, that finance had to be a part of my intentions, right? Like, my relationship with time had to be looked at, my relationship spiritually, and then my relationship financially. And when I started thinking about my finances, I thought, geez, you have a very toxic relationship with finances, right? As far as your spending habits. Now, initially, I just figured, you make the money, you spend the money how you feel you want, right? And I always, it was never like a conscious thing growing up of like, This is how much money you have. This is how much you should spend. This is how you should save your money. Like, no one ever discussed with me as a child personally, and this is no shade to anybody, the real deeper meaning of money, right? Like, we get it and we want to spend it, but that, like, it's just such the wrong thing to do, right? Like, you should make the money initially, right? And then the money should start working for you. Like, you should not be working for money. And I had to look at my finances, and it was just boring, right? And it was depressing because you look at all of the things that you spent your time on, and then you look at all the things that you spend your money on, and you're just like, wow, what were you thinking? Okay, let's clean it up here. Get your shit together. So I asked God to give me a book. And of course, he's right on time all the time. And I was looking for something that I could connect with, right? And something that just felt like, wow. And that's when this book came, The Richest Man in Babylon. And look, do you see my jaw has dropped because, wow. I can't unhear, I can't unthink about the things that I read about in this book, to the point of, if you are making the same financial decisions that you've made previously after reading this book, you are the problem. And I had to get real. Like, you just read this book, and I read it 3 times, okay? Cover to cover. And then I went back and I read it again. And I found so many jewels in this book. And everything that I was doing was wrong. I'm like, you're doing a couple of these, but you ain't doing all of them. And these are such simplistic principles that it's ridiculous. Like, we overcomplicate everything. At least I have, right? Overcomplicated everything to the point where you do nothing because you've overcomplicated it in your head. You just thought of 100 gazillion ways that this could go wrong, and you've overcomplicated everything. And the book is so simple in its wisdom that you got to be pretty stupid to not like understand the principles and why they matter. And yet none of us do this. It's like, well, no, I'm not going to say none of us, because there are people who have made really good financial decisions and they're living in abundance and their money is working for them. So I'm not talking about for those people. I'm talking about for the people who didn't necessarily have the greatest relationship with money, right? Not that you don't make it, but it's how you're spending it and the not paying yourself first. One of the core principles he talks about in the book, obviously, is making sure you pay yourself first. There's 7 of them. I'm not gonna give you all of them because you're not gonna read the book, right? And you really should, because I felt like I was on this wisdom session. Like, I this felt so intellectually simple, but there was so much wisdom in what I was reading that I had to read it again. And the stories that he's going to tell you, they're so simple, but he makes you think. I can't tell you. If you've read it, then let's discuss, right? And if you haven't read it, I highly suggest you do. And as you're in your transition to, the best that you could possibly be for yourself, then this might be something you want in your arsenal. Like, you better have this book, right? Of course, the Bible, but you better have this book too, because Wow. Amazing. Just amazing. I think I'm going to just read it again just because, like, what if I missed something, right? Like, what if I missed a jewel? I don't think I did, but I'm going to read it again just because. So, these are my recommendations. And if you're a reader and you're interested in something that can help you, then these are the books to read, because here in 2025, I'm just madly in love with progress. I am madly in love and devoted to developing and taking all of these skills that I have and multiplying them 10x, just we 10x and all the whole way through. And I'm also going to make sure that I do it with the purest of intention in my heart. So I hope that these shared books could help you. And I do hope you, at least if you already have the Bible, I'm sure you do. The Richest Man in Babylon, like, please pick it up. And thank you for watching. And I'll see you soon. Bye.